Thank you all for joining today's conversation. We are really excited to have you here with us today. We're here to talk about establishing value in a hybrid workforce. As you all seen, there is a lot of movement right now as we come out of the pandemic, and many of us have been working remotely for quite a long time, and we are now moving into a place where some folks are being asked to return to offices, and other folks are saying that they would quit their job. So really, really excited to kick off this conversation and chat about what it means to work in a hybrid workforce, and how do you show value when some of your team is remote and some of your team is coming into person? How do you continue to build those relationships and network? Quickly, I just want to tell you a little bit about our company. If we can go to the next slide, Jackie. And CSuite Coach has been around since 2015. We're coming up on 6 years of business. Really, really excited about the work that we do. We wake up every day thinking about how to make career advancement and equity in the workplace a reality for all. And every day that North Star is just, how do we keep moving business forward and think about equity in the workplace, and how this actualizes for us. If we look at the next slide, please. It's through 3 core services that we offer. We offer coach staffing services. We are sourcing, training, and staffing qualified and vetted coaches and facilitators to large companies who are looking to develop their talent. And we focus on Black and Latinx talent. But I will just say, in our 6 years of business, we've worked with a number of large organizations, from Google to Zendesk to Wix to Oscar Health. And what we're most excited about these days is we've just launched our first business to consumer product, where we're offering coaching services through our platform that we've just launched. So I am going to turn it over to why we're here today, which is for an amazing conversation with 2 experts in the field, both of coaching as well as in business, with a quick overview of their bios. So I'll start off with Dr. Carla Michelle, who is an executive coach, author, and keynote speaker. She specializes in harmonizing the necessity of a developed mindset and the impact of productivity in the workplace. Carla Michelle explores the benefits of positive psychology through its strengths and virtues that empower high-level functioning individuals and organizations. And when you work with Carla Michelle, and I should note that, as I mentioned, we've launched this new platform that offers one-on-one coaching services to Black and Latino professionals in the workplace. She is one of the coaches that is a part of this platform. When you're working with Carla Michelle, you achieve the clarity and insight necessary to identify your individual path towards success while affirming your innate strengths. You will be pushed through candid professional advice to take on new challenges, even if the new challenge is exploring more about yourself, getting to know you better. So we're really excited to have Dr. Carla Michelle here. And I'm also excited to introduce Dr. Hayes Gibson, who has just recently announced his new position as a Harvard Business School faculty. He is an innovative technology and operations leader, author, educator, and career public servant whose doctoral studies at Harvard Business School focus on operational effectiveness and human capital development. So prior to his work there as an academy professor of systems engineering in the U.S. Military Academy, he built resilient, dynamic, and diverse teams that could successfully navigate volatile, uncertain, complex, and the ambiguous world in which we operate to achieve optimal organizational outcomes. So to me, that sounds a lot like someone who has lots of great insights on how to navigate a pandemic and post-pandemic world. That being said, I'd like to introduce our key guests today. Dr. Carla and Dr. Hayes, please do. We'd love to just hear from you. Hello.
Hello, everyone. It's such a great honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to all that's going to take place today. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you putting this together, Angelina. I think it's going to be a fantastic conversation. I'm humbled to have the opportunity to share the screen with Dr. Carla Michelle. So I look forward to the conversation and all the questions.
Awesome. So I'd like to kick it off with just our first conversation, our first question that we have for you today. We're now returning to this in-person and hybrid workspace. I mentioned it's been a lot of articles that have been coming out that are saying some folks want to leave their jobs if they have to go back. And then we've seen some CEOs say, you need to come back into the office. It's time. We've been away from each other too long. Business is more productive. So we're navigating this in-between space right now. And from your perspective, how can management make sure that as they're building this hybrid work model, that they're inclusive and that they're creating systems that allow for the development of all of their employee populations?
I think, are you being in general? I'm sorry, I don't want to just go, but.
I'll defer to Carla first.
Oh, I appreciate that, Dr. Gibson. Oh, well, first I think I'll be really brief so we can hear what Dr. Gibson has to say. First, we need to ask the right questions. That is key to me. And if I only get to make one point, you have to communicate during these times. You have to ask the questions. You have to care. You have to get in there. There's so much going on with the people that we need to help our businesses run. So if you want to include everybody, you've got to talk to everybody.
That's really important. Yes, absolutely.
And I think to build on that, that is the key component. And I think organizations have to really not go back to in the Wayback Machine in November 2019. It's out of the Pandora's box. We've realized you can be productive not in the office. However, we are human beings, so we have to acknowledge a need for connection. So there's different ways that the office space can be reinvented to allow for all those things to happen, because employees have far more agency now than they've ever had. And it's because folks are willing to leave at a moment's notice, and they're able, those especially people who have skills, will be able to quickly transition to other things without thinking. And those who have different skills, let's say trade skills, can just go out on their own and become their own business and do very, very well. So I think there's a realization that's happened over the 18 months that we can't not pay attention to.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because what we have been seeing is there's been more Black businesses that have started through the pandemic. And historically, we've had a lot of frustrations at work. We don't see in Black and Latino communities the same levels of sponsorship and advocacy at executive levels. So that being said, just want to hear more. If you all could dive a little bit deeper into, if we're remaining in the workforce, there are some that have chosen to leave and launch new businesses, but others that still want to keep their corporate jobs. How can we make sure that especially Black and brown talent are advocating for themselves and building relationships in this space?
So I'll jump on that one. And I think organizations, although they've stated that we care about diversity and we care about inclusion, we'll just say that out loud. We've heard these same things over, I don't know, half a century, and was really pushed in the 70s hard as we saw a corporate spike in Black talent. But although there was that spike in the 70s, there are very few now. There's only a handful of CEOs that exist, less than 5. When you get to the C-suite of organizations, you see very few folks who are Latinx or African American or just people of color in general, or women. And so I think organizations now are acknowledging that in order to manage the high performing talent that they have, they're going to have to, it's a contact sport. They're going to have to engage. They're going to have to pay attention, because someone else wants that talent, and they're waiting for an opportunity to it's like a great press story. They're trying to scoop the talent away because they know that talent's going to help them. And so if organizations don't pay attention and be very intentional at all levels of forward-looking planning, they're going to be unable to keep the talent that they want. Because if we're honest, you start looking at structure of organizations, you still see a divide. There's like a glass ceiling that exists for the majority of Black and brown talent in a lot of organizations. And it's just looking as an observer on the outside, like at the director level, there may be a stop depending on how you classify talent, versus at the senior director or EVP level. So again, organizations that are intentional will be more diverse at the top. Those who are less intentional at their leadership, you don't have to like dig deep. You can just like look at a picture and see what's going on.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up that glass ceiling. One of the articles that recently just came out in Business Insider was around how microaggressions are actually causing mental health issues for women of color in the workforce, and just the challenges. So when we think about people leaving, a lot of that has to do with constantly dealing with not being treated or dehumanizing treatment in the workplace. What we have seen is now that we've moved to this virtual space, there's been some better mental health practices and boundary setting for people. So I'd love to just turn it over to you, Dr. Carla. As we're moving back, how can workers establish boundaries that ensure their mental health and wellness behaviors are enforced, whether they're working from home or returning into the offices?
It's important, especially in the Black and Latina or Latinx community, that it's okay. We have to know it's okay if you're not okay. So the first thing I would say is to be honest. A lot of times we don't want to be honest to where we are in life, in business, in work, especially if you are a single parent, whether male or females, because we have our males as well, and not speaking up to where things are hard, things are different, were at home, it may change, but be honest, then be the answer. Be the answer for yourself, be the answer for your organization. There's things that you can speak up about that you can help change, and also be your own advocate. You have to advocate for yourself to get the feedback, to get the change, and then do your research. What does your company organization offer, whether hybrid, in person? What do they offer? What are the connections? I know many companies give 3 to 6 free mental therapy sessions. I won't say mental therapy sessions. So you're able to go ahead and avail yourself to that. Personal time off. So it's important that you advocate for yourself, even if the promises of taking care of you personally are not met. It is still up to us personally to do that for ourselves.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you so much. And Dr. Haas, any more thoughts there? You are muted, so we're missing all of your good content.
Sorry. You would think after 18 months we'd have this like locked down. But I agree with the idea that acknowledging that it's okay not to be okay and to acknowledge it. I think, unfortunately, based on what we've observed over, from our parents and our grandparents and great-grandparents who kind of like rode hard and were always on a grind. We've been conditioned to be on a grind. We've been conditioned to let microaggressions be water off a duck's back, so to speak, and just kind of move on and not pay attention. But that there's a tearing of yourself that occurs constantly over time that at some point is going to cause all of us just to kind of lash out. And normally that happens at the worst time that it could ever happen. And so I think to Dr. Michelle's point, to look at the organization, do your own research, and it might not be the right fit. Even though the comp might be amazing, the quality of life, you kind of can't put a price on being able to relax and to not be tense in an 8 to 12 hour workday.
Can I add something to that, Angelia? There's something that I'm seeing happening lately is people of color being put in positions to meet a quota, to make the organization look good. And that is stressful in itself, to show up for a company and it's not possibly a legitimate placement out of, I'll say it wouldn't have happened before this last year. And they feel that stress. And to Dr. Gibson's points, you have to see, does it work for you? I've had a client or two have to transition out because of the pressure to be that person for the company. And we have to be sensitive. We have to still have boundaries. We still have to have self-worth, self-esteem, and know that that is not the only job out there. There's so much going on. And so I wanted to make sure I put that in there.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you sharing that. And, one thing I'd say before we move off the topic of mental health, and all of you on the call, feel free to please put your questions in the chat as well, is even if you're working remotely, taking your vacation days, taking your learning and development days, if you have any of those perks, Dr. Carla already highlighted that, but making sure you're actually taking care of yourself and that you are finding times to turn off and unplug. Often when we are in spaces where work and home become integrated, it's hard to find separation, and truly, truly believe that we need to enforce that. So I want to just ask too, we talked a lot about folks saying that they want to work full time at home. Right now, actually, the stat that we all shared with you when talking about this event was one survey found that only 3% of employees and entrepreneurs said that they actually want to go back to a physical office. The rest want some degree of flexibility when working remotely and working from home. So how is culture of a company maintained? And this is especially important if you're on a smaller team or if you are a business owner. How do you grow and maintain a company culture that enables the development of your employees when you're working from home or you have that hybrid workforce? And also, how do you make sure you're doing what you need to do as an employer to retain your employees?
Well, I think that it comes back to the contact support statement that I made earlier, is that this kind of environment requires constant engagement and frequency that we are unaccustomed to. So for instance, if we're honest and think about the organization that you may be in, over the pandemic, your boss or your boss's boss gained quickly more visibility on what you were doing, just in an effort to make sure you were okay. And that it probably sustained for about 7 or 8 months. And then you're kind of drained, and now it's kind of easing back because you don't need to have all the meetings. But it requires a cadence to create the culture that you want. It has to be pushed down in a way that empowers others to do the same thing. Because once everyone is kind of engaged in a meaningful way, you can maintain some level of productivity, even in a virtual environment. It's not the same, but we've already proven that you can be extremely productive in this environment and get things done and drive productivity and process in a way that's meaningful, that doesn't require an office. And which goes to a buddy of mine at HBS, Ethan Bernstein, wrote 3 or 4 years ago around the challenge of the open office, which really got a lot of corporations all up in arms because they just spent all the money to open their offices, get rid of the cubicles, and he highlighted you will not get productivity from an open office setting. The innovation is not going to happen. Really upset a bunch of people, but now he's right. So I think frequency and deliberate cadence is the only way to maintain a culture in this kind of hybrid situation.
Yeah, I really am glad that you brought up, because there's always been fears about, can we operate in unorthodox environments? And we've seen businesses grow. My own business has been able to grow throughout the pandemic. So there's definitely opportunity there, but it is a matter of being really intentional, like you called out. Dr. Carla, what do you think?
As an organization, I believe that it is important that you remove the favorites that you had that were in office, and you give everyone an equal chance. There's some widen your view of what talents are out there. I would say that from the management or executive level, to see see people in a different light right now and give everyone an opportunity. But it's also the thing about some still choose to go in and not to I don't want to say discipline, but that's the only word that's coming up right now. Those who choose not to. So in that, if someone chooses to work from home, they say there's like 38% of people who work from home. I mean, it's such a low percentage of those who get promotions because they're not visible. So, stop that inequality there and look and give everybody a fair shot. But those who choose to work from home, visibility, like Dr. Gibson said, is key. I think that's one of the things. How can you be visible but not overwork? Because visibility, people take it as I need to work harder and longer. That is not mentally safe for you, but it's how do you work smarter? How do you get with the people that are doing the thing that you want to get involved with? Get your networking as we are doing now. Start your own Zoom or Googles or Hangouts and get to know your teammates at another level. Don't just be moved by what the top is not doing for you, but really create some things that work for you as a team. And then I believe in collaboration. And not giving up on technology and how you can increase the ways that you come into a meeting, how you can show up and have the solution to any problem that forms. There's so many more opportunities that, because we're so open-minded now, this is the time to create. This is the time to go outside of the box with your solutions for any project that you're working on. So I see it as hybrid is great, but I'm telling you, we can make it greater by taking the opportunity that wait, because we're thrown off. We still haven't gotten it. So this is the time to lay the foundation that you want to see in your organization.
I love those takeaways. What stood out to me definitely is the idea of encouraging employers to remove their favorites. And then the idea of intentional visibility. So examples of that I've seen with some of our corporate clients are having different folks lead internal book clubs or different networking organizations, or even if there's a team meeting, can you find ways to make sure you're the leader this week and you're having an opportunity to drive some sort of the business at these meetings where you are highly visible in front of the whole team. So I'd love to, if any of you have other ideas about tactics for being intentionally visible while working remotely, would love to see that conversation in the chat. And we will take one question from the chat before I return to some of the questions that I had. Coming from Greg in Richmond, what tips would you give someone who's trying to decide if they want to return to work versus, so I'm assuming he means returning to work in person versus pursuing full-time remote work. So it sounds like looking to find what's the right fit for them. How should they come about making that decision?
I think one thing to think about is we have to accept the world as it is, not how we want it to be. Just if we're just honest. So the world and the rules and the constraints exist. So there's always going to be a requirement for some kind of in-person situation at some point, at some level. So it's something to think about. So I think it all depends on what do you determine success is for you, whatever that is. I think is the answer to that, because again, it's a quality of life balance that you're working for. So I think that's the key thing. How do you define success before you make that kind of position, or take that kind of position and determine if you want to be remote or not. But then also acknowledge you're going to have to go in and see somebody, because who's in charge? Unless you're dealing with a startup tech company with someone who's like in their early 20s, you're probably going to have someone in their mid 40s who may be in charge, and he or she has been colored by their corporate experience, which is going to require some kind of in-person something.
Spoken like a true coach, right? So, one of the things we chat about a lot, if any of you are thinking about one-on-one coaching engagements, is there's not necessarily going to be a solution that we're delivering to you, but it's more about helping to arrive at the decision that works best for you. And I'm sure you have a couple more insights there, Dr. Carla.
Yes. Like Dr. Gibson said, and like you reiterated, it is important that you know your end game. What is your end game? And that's really it. And then, going backwards from there. But it also, you have to understand that when you work remotely, to me, if you're not in their face, you gotta remain visible. You might work twice as hard in some areas. I don't think you do harder work and work all day, but you will work twice as hard just to make sure, unless you're just the kind of person who doesn't want to be seen and just wants to turn in work, and hey, that might be the perfect way for you. Then, I celebrate you. But if you're looking to promote and looking to take on new responsibilities, you have to take that into consideration of how that and where you want to go in your career, what your age is, what are your commitments to your family. When you work remotely, it interrupts your day is shot in a room. So you got to figure out where you're in a building, you're able to leave, walk out, get a lunch break. So figure out there's a lot to take in. Remote work is beautiful. I do it. I have an office too. But I understand that you have to have time management skills. Your soft skills have to be up to par as well.
Absolutely. And you also have to be intentional. We talked about that, right? To make sure you are staying visible. So you have to know yourself if you're going to have a strategy for making sure that your growth isn't stunted if you do decide to remain in a remote working position. Please do keep your questions coming in the chat. We really appreciate them and want to make sure that we're answering what's top of mind for you. But quickly, I just want to share that some of the benefits that employees are saying that are most important to them are healthcare. We all want benefits, professional development, and coaching. So when this is the case, but coming out of a pandemic, there are so many employers that are saying we have budget constraints, or we had to do layoffs or take pay cuts. How do employees, both of you talked about the theme of agency, how do employees demonstrate that agency and advocate for themselves to ensure that their priorities are being met in this new working model and in this time?
I'll defer to Dr. Carla first.
You're so kind. Thank you. We want to make sure that, we have to work with me here when I say this, and excuse it if you don't want it. But where do we get to the point where we understand when we have these careers that we have put a lot of expectation on an organization to please us in every way? When are we also going to be responsible for ourselves? So you hear me say that a lot in anything I say. There's something about being honest, advocating. So this is also a time, if there is some things that you're not getting, there's some time. This is time for you to look out for yourself. And I will even say, and you haven't asked this yet, but when it comes to coaching, I have had clients pay out of pocket because their organization will not cover it. And then they go back to their organization, show them the results of the coaching, and then are able to negotiate some assistance or some support or something where the company will cover the cost. So those are the things that you have to advocate for yourself. You have to negotiate. You have to put things on the table. Nowadays, things are not always handed to you. But if you are one of those favorite employees, this is the time to tap in to have your, put it out there what you need, even if it's budget cuts, because they find money for things. Let them find the money for you.
Woo, thank you. That's powerful.
And I think just the only thing to add to that is we have to remind ourselves, what is the purpose of an organization? What is the purpose of the corporation? I mean, it was written about in 1958 by a guy named March. So, the organization, that's the foundation of a lot of organizational behavior. So, well, the purpose is to make money. It's to bring some people together to get aligned and make some money, period. Now, in the advent of, when we think about companies like Google or tech companies, the jam is to have free lunch and free laundry and free fill in the blank and great rooftop decks. Amazing. But if we're honest, that's all to ensure productivity, and that they're taking everything away from you so that you can focus on the terminal. So it's like a perversive gotcha that has got many people. So they assume that organizations should be there to ensure their every happiness. And that's not how this is really played. And so there's a balance. And I think Dr. Carla highlighted a key thing. If you can show the return on investment, even if it's your investment, you're going to win, because you can't dispute output, outcomes. It's impossible. So that's a way to negotiate, to have negotiating power to get what you want. But to your point, Angelina, organizations are doing the exact same thing they do after every major downturn of any type. We're not in a downturn of any type right now. But if we think about the downturn of the financial markets in 2008, 2009, first thing that goes is leadership development, human capital development, yada, yada, yada. Now we look 10 years later, the folks who survived are the ones who are in charge. So they are not good developers. themselves because they've never had to develop anyone else. They've survived and they've been good grinders and workers and engagers, but they're not developers, which is why there's a huge need for coaching and leader development. Now, if they make the same mistake again, they're going to create another 10-year lag. So the smart organizations are actually doubling down on investing in their people versus not. So again, I think figuring out a way to get it yourself is a way, but then highlighting to your organization, why would you make the same mistake that happens every cycle?
Wow, really, really rich negotiation advice on there. Didn't even know that we were going to go in that direction. That's really powerful. So I appreciate you all sharing that, thinking about the return on the investment, demonstrating that. I want you all to keep that top of mind as you're thinking about how to advocate and navigate these conversations. We have 2 questions from the chat that I want to turn it over to, and a lot of thank yous. So thank you all for your comments. But first, from Shaw says, transparency in a hybrid environment seems really important. And the rumor mills and many organizations have gotten a lot of out mileage of, I've heard that such and such is staying remote while such and such team has to be back Monday through Friday by August 1st. What would you say about transparency as companies are adjusting to either fully back to campus or hybrid work models?
I personally think that this is the PR or strategic comms person's nightmare, and it's all driven from the top. So if the leader isn't clear on what's going on, or if the leader is clear, but his or her senior VPs aren't, that's why you have the disparity that you have. And with some organizations, and I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this, are doing exactly that. One group, one leader is saying X, another leader saying Y, because the senior leader pushed it all the way down to like the manager. You know, talk to your manager and they'll come up with a plan. That's kind of unfair to the manager because they have to deal with the fallout now of upset teams and the rumor mills. And so it starts at the top. And I think it's just a strategic comms and PR nightmare on this one. I'm seeing it in multiple tech companies right now. And so it's, the leader has to decide and has to get buy-in and then push it down once they come up with a plan. But there's going to be a lot of fallout and they're going to have to figure it out on the back end, like around Labor Day.
Thank you for that. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Hartla.
I was going to say, we also have to take leadership style in consideration. That plays a big role. A lot of micromanagers have freaked out and with this pandemic, and they want their people back in the office for hands-on, eyes-on, body there in the chair. And that's a disservice to the employees who are able to, work fine remotely. But you have to, this is when she says, should there be some transparency? Yes, but there's so much behind it. And also what is the department doing? Different departments do different things that may bring them in. So leadership, the actual work being done. So I would ask, if people are feeling that way, ask the questions. These are what your one-on-ones are for. This is what your town halls are for. This is why you bring those up. If there's a suggestion email box that they can't trace it back to you, if that's how you feel, but ask the question so you can get the answer. This is the thing we miss with change management. When you bring in an expert to come in with your organization or a coach and a coaching connection where they can help with change management and go through the process so everyone has a clear understanding of why and what and when. And maybe it's not forever, but if you don't speak up, you'll never know.
And to that point around micromanagers, that comes from the folks who didn't have the opportunity to get developed over the last decade. And they're using micromanagement not to ensure productivity, but purely for control, because that's how they've become successful. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of senior managers and senior VPs and even some CEOs, depending on what their experience has been.
Really great points. Thank you so much. And please do, the questions in the chat are great. If you have any more, please do drop them in. Coming from Brittany, What are ways that leaders can reimagine the one-to-one meeting in a hybrid environment to maintain a deliberate cadence that cultivates an inclusive culture? How are one-on-ones reimagined? How do we make sure, we talked about the intentionality, and I loved what Dr. Carla said about removing your favorites. So how do we use the one-on-one meetings to make sure that we're actually doing that?
I always saw the one-on-one meetings as the opportunity for the employee or to really own that meeting. That is your meeting. That's where you can come in right now. And even if it's hybrid, you control how. I like to work with 10 minutes, 20 minutes. You break down what you want to do on the first 10. That's a check-in. That's and you can't just, go, how you doing? It almost like from a scale to 1 to 10, I'm feeling this way about what's going on in the company or what's going on in my department. Don't just, this is your time to be honest, but professional. So the 1 to 10 scale is always a good way to go. I'm a 7 or I'm a 5. Well, why are you a 5? Because it gets the conversation starting, because they don't want you to be a 5 or a 4. So there you go. Work the one-on-one for your benefit. Go in ready. I'm going to do it from the employee's perspective. Go in ready with what you want to talk about. You have to remember, usually leaders, which is not always good, they have other things on their mind. So you have to come ready to almost navigate how you want the discussion to go, because they're thinking about the decision that they have to make. Something else is going on bigger in their head. No disrespect, but that's what's happening. And if you know that, go in ready, plan it out. I recommend a one-on-one form. I used to have one. If I find it, I don't mind sharing, but a one-on-one form where you have the questions you want to ask. You want to give an update from the last time you met, your next steps, who you've collaborated with, who you need, who he needs to sponsor you with. Those are the kind of things that are important for the one-on-one from the employee up view.
And just to add to that, never go in that meeting blind. I mean, just to Dr. Carla's point around, just don't go and say, how are you doing? That's a waste of time. And if you're wasting your leader's time, that's a problem, because that's what they're going to remember. And so always have an agenda. That's the key part. And then if the leader derails your agenda, so be it. But you at least had an agenda, and you send it to them before the meeting so you can at least know what's going on. But when you don't do that, you're wasting that opportunity. It is not like a bird in the nest situation, and the leader's going to feed you. I mean, you're really wasting their time, and you're losing credibility every time that occurs.
I love this idea of the employee owning the one-on-one. I think we definitely need to make sure that is the key takeaway for all of us. I will tell you, at CSuite Coach, we've worked with a strategic consultant, and one of the things we did is reimagine our meeting format. And so if you're looking for a formula, if Dr. Carla can't find her one-on-one sheet, the focus that we do is we look at areas of focus for the upcoming week or the period between our meetings, and we look at what should we be focusing on, what are the friction points, any insights or new awarenesses, and what might we be lacking to accomplish the goal. So that's part of how we're using our one-on-ones or our small group meetings. So thank you for that. I love the idea of the employee owning that and providing the agenda, and that also speaks to this idea of being really intentional about your visibility. That's a great way to show up and demonstrate that leadership. If there are any more questions, please do put it in the chat. But I have one more for you all from my notes. And it's really interesting that both of you brought up the idea of leadership lacking in development in the previous generation, or workers from 10 years behind, not really focusing so much on how to be a people manager, right? And so also one of the things we've seen is in the past years, if you worked with a coach, call it the 80s, the 90s, it was a sign of weakness. They were trying to fix you. You probably had a problem, but coaching has really gone through an evolution in terms of perception and also in terms of who receives it. And we've seen a lot of growth there. So as more powerful CEOs, as more leaders are stepping forward and advocating the benefit of coaching, what role do you believe executive coaching plays in this new working model? How can we push the narrative that coaching is beneficial at all levels?
I think you just show a picture, because you're going to see that most CEOs are going to have a coach. I mean, I was at a random gathering with a mentor of mine, and he introduced me. I asked him, "What are you doing next?" He's like, "I don't know. Ask her." It's like, who is this woman? Not your wife. That's my coach. And and very unassuming in the cut. I've seen her multiple times over the years, and she's always in the right place, the right time, and helping guide people to make better decisions for themselves. And so I think we would be very surprised at the number of senior people who've had coaches for the past 15, 20 years. And those people are invaluable. So I think executive coaches have now become an integral part of development for that jump from director to VP and above. You're going to be challenged not to find executive coach required for those kind of individuals, just to fill in the gaps that they just naturally have, because they're really, really good. But to your point, Angelina, they're not necessarily people managers. They're like technical specialists and amazing experts. But understanding what's going on across the line, there's a gap there that only someone with many years of experience and training and opportunity to see many leaders like yourself and Dr. Michelle are only kind of folks who can really help folks see themselves and then give them frameworks to push forward.
Totally agree with that. If I could just get right in there with you. The coaches are so necessary right now. And if organizations can't see that, if individuals cannot see that, they will in some form. There's transition, there's change. You don't do things alone, and this is not the time to do things alone. And a coach is the best answer to that. Helping you navigate through the change, helping you navigate through personal and professional development when it's not easy. Some people are on that fast track and they say they don't need a coach. I think they do still. But however, those who are really doing the step-by-step, position moves and want to work on their communication skills, want to work how to strategize, want to work on how to show up in a meeting, want to work on how to communicate their plan and to get it to the end. It's important to have that coach there. I think there's all kind of coaches, so all kind of personalities to help you get to where you want to go, and that's the power of the picker. You get to pick the kind of coach that works for you. But a coach is definitely, it's like that. I don't know. Is this a term, ace in the pocket? I don't even know. I just made up something. Is that a real term? Anyway, a coach is an ace in the pocket. There you go.
I love that you chatted about the power of coaching, and I do have to do a plug for our coaching platform that we've just launched with CSuite Coach. And on our platform, we have 3 different levels of coaching. One target towards those earlier stage professionals, one targeted towards mid-level, mid-career professionals, and one for executives. And I'm wondering if either of you could speak to, is there, and I have my own thoughts, but I'd love to hear from you, is there a right time in your career when you should be pursuing a coach?
If you're thinking about it right now, it's probably too late.
I think that's the right answer. Absolutely. Go ahead.
I have no response after that. That was great. Yes.
Absolutely. I will tell you, I've engaged with my executive coach at various points through my career, and even as I've transitioned into being a business owner. And I think, what Dr. Highs laid out, most leaders will have one. And if you're true about being a student of the business and also a student of yourself to be a better leader, engaging with coaches at various points throughout your career is probably the right move. So I do want to share that. You can look through the profiles of some of the coaches that are on our website. And if you want to work with any of them, you're welcome to choose that. But we also have the opportunity for you to have short conversations, mini consultations, and find the right coach for you on our platform. Now, we do have one more question from the audience, and 2 more questions coming in. So we're getting to a close. I'm going to start to wrap up with these questions. And if any more of you have questions, please do drop them in. From Sarah Clark, how as leaders can we cultivate the informal conversations and connections that used to occur between formal meetings, right? That let me pull you aside and do the debrief after the debrief, or the debrief after the meeting, right? When your team is hybrid or remote. Absolutely. I think that's such a powerful question. Any thoughts there?
I will say it's important to still have those debriefs, and remember, I don't know if this is true, but chat, if they save it, the chat, if your personal chat may be in there, so you want to take it offline and have those debriefings afterwards. And I want to touch on being more informal. I've seen this happen in meetings at, I won't name the company, but what they're doing is, in part of their meetings, they're having something personal being shared. I'm not talking about drama. I'm saying Juneteenth, someone was able to bring in their ancestor.com and find out, just where their ancestors came from slavery on. That was something. This is not a Black owned, this is a huge organization, healthcare, and that's what they're doing in their meetings, to bond and to learn more about each other, and not just the work, but to learn about, with the climate that we're in, how people are handling, or how people are going through, or what's special about them, what's their skill set. So that's that informal way that you can stay connected as well. Just bring something new to the table during your meetings.
And then the only thing to add to that is you have agency. We're in a flat world. Send a note for like a 5-minute meeting. People got 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 10 minutes. And if you make that meeting and someone shows up, you have an agenda or something in your head you want to talk about, you're not wasting that 10 minutes. It's just like a catch up, what's going on, need some advice here, and you're gonna invariably get something that wasn't planned out of that engagement. So just creating your own meeting rhythm or cadence is important in a virtual environment. It's even more important because the chance meetings don't happen. They're not chance. They're extremely deliberate, and so it takes a lot of thought and time considerations.
I love that, Dr. Heiss and Dr. Carla. And, one of the pieces in our chat, Rashida, who's with us, says we do virtual coffees with our team members as a replacement for those one-on-ones. I'll tell you also, in our weekly meetings at C-Suite Coach, we have a wellness check. And the importance of that, or like the example that Dr. Carla shared, where you share those personal things, that's how you build the relationship, so that you can have those offline conversations in a way where you can trust each other to share the insights and the feedback. So I love those practices. We're getting to a close. So our next question comes from Greg. In the context of managing up and facilitating change, are there any strategies that we can use in our organizations to speed up normalizing hybrid work or even full remote work?
This is very draconian, and unfortunately I have to tell you no, because it's really based on the leader. There's nothing you can manage up on that one. It's not like a process or working through a project or trying to get a deal done. This is cultural, organizational, enterprise level processing that is not bottoms up. It, unfortunately, in my opinion, has to be top down. The only part of bottom up that can be displayed is if at the bottom or the middle, there's ridiculous amount of productivity that's occurring that is undisputed. And even then, it's so leader based that there's nothing, not to sound just sad and, but there's nothing you really can do except perform.
Thank you so much. And we're getting to a close. So I do want to just kick it over to both Dr. Carla and then Dr. Heiss to see if you have any more closing remarks. And then I have one more remark that I'd love to share with all of you.
I will just say again, is the world is what you make it. So as it goes for your career is what you make it. The opportunities are what you make it. So if anything, you see that what we are touching on is you taking control of your life. And one of the options are coaching to help you find that place help you find that place where you can jump to the next level. But it's still up to you. If you are the leader, it is still up to you to bring and be that leader to your employees. But if you're the employee, it's up to you to be that leader to yourself, as well as show up on your job and I was about to say kick butt and do what you can to really, impact your career the way you want to. This is a good time for us right now. Get in there, make the most out of it, and watch what happens.
Dr. Hayes?
And all they add to that is this is a huge opportunity, so take advantage of the opportunities when presented. When given a chance to operate a level, 2 levels up, all of us have some type of imposter syndrome, but right or wrong, folks are going to select you based on your ability to get it done. So just own it and do it and enjoy it, and don't be scared, because you have agency in the process a lot more than any other time. So very exciting times, and please just take advantage and win.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank Dr. Heiss and Dr. Carla for being with us today. You can follow both of their work on LinkedIn. Dr. Heiss also has a Medium page, so please do make sure you check that out and follow some of his writing there. Dr. Carla has great videos and amazing content on Instagram, so you want to take a look and follow her there as well. On behalf of C-Suite Coach, I want to thank you all for joining with us. This is actually our first C-Suite Coach chat, where we are highlighting one of the coaches on our platform and hearing their insights. We'll be returning with these on a regular basis to hear from the different coaches on our platforms, as well as industry leaders who are thought leaders in their spaces. So we do hope that you come back, that if you like something you heard, you tweet it and at us at C-Suite Coach, and that you also spread the word about our coaching packages. We also have enterprise options. So if any of your companies are interested in coaches that are inclusive, that reflect Black and Brown populations, we do hope that you will make an introduction and get us connected with your team so we can offer some options for you. So I want to thank everyone for joining. I want to thank you for your questions. Again, another thank you to our speakers, and we hope to see you at the next C-Suite Coach chat. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.